Welcome. I'm DonnaRae Menard. I'm a local author in St. Albans, Vermont. And with the assistance of Northwest Public Access and Joshua Pryor, I am reading in segments my book, Beneath the Fountain. This story takes place in St. Albans in Taylor Park at the Ladies of the Lake, or as we used to call it, the Goddess Fountain. In this story, you have met Lynn Steves, her friends, you've seen where she works. You've also been privy to the fact that she witnessed, albeit clandestinely, a bit of a body dump. And now it's coming back to haunt her. We're going to continue with the story. Shannon left long before I was through for the night. Later, I set the alarm and standing alone in the parking lot, couldn't bring myself to walk down the alley behind the fountain. Instead, I turned the other way, walking around the building to the customer lot and out to Main Street. Even though all the stores were closed, there were still cars out. I could hear people laughing in the park. Everything was normal, yet there still seemed to be a heavy weight on my shoulders. I lacked the ability to raise my head to the stars. While I stood at the big window in my apartment, soup heated on the stove, reflected on the glass, shot from deep within my own brain, were the photos of Mr. Knapp. If I looked through the glass on the other side, I could see the woman in the greenhouse, her ornate holiday dress ruined beyond repair. There was no connection between either one of them, but altogether, they complicated my life. The tomato basil soup boiled over. "Ah," I growled, moving the pan to find a scorched mess. I needed to clean that up pronto. While my soup cooled, I took a scrubber to the stove. Unbidden, I realized a swirling scene from the Victorian ball was playing against the back of my eyelids. There, men in white wigs and worn-out firefighter boots danced with women in bright-colored gowns of velvet and lace. All the women were fair-haired. Each dress was a different dark jewel tone. Though it was an enchanting in an airy way, it was nowhere near as grim as the nightmare that shot me out of bed at 2 a.m. In the second version of the waltz scene, the men were grinning skeletons, and the women in their long, full, swishing skirts moved with their heads bobbing 6 inches above their bodies. Each smile was a slash of bright red. The edges of the gaping, severed wounds were wrapped in ribbon which matched the gowns. Tapered ends fluttered behind them. Beyond the dancers, a trio played cello, violin, and spinet. Each swaying musician wore a white wig and yellow rain pants. Dry-mouthed, I laid down, calling Rusty to lie with me. "Let me sleep," I said to the purring cat. "Okay? Just don't let me have another nightmare." Chapter 8. The next morning, I was again sitting in front of the big window, cup of coffee in hand. Across the room on the television, the Channel 3 news anchor gave a brief 3-line nod to the 05478 murders. There was no new information. Shannon would be glad they hadn't scooped her story, which would be out the following morning in the Journal. I scratched Rusty under the chin, "I'm going to move this chair. This isn't such a great spot to sit after all." My wandering eyes drifted toward the fountain again. When the repairs were finished, I would be able to see the top with its Grecian goddess extending her hand in friendship. Or would she be beckoning, calling those who knew Frank Knapp to honor his memory? Now the budding trees were just leafed over enough to distort the entire work area. "It's not right," I said. "Mr. Knapp was a harmless old guy. He had nothing but a small amount of money tucked away for when he needed it." Rusty wrapped around my ankles, totally agreeing with what I said. It was time to move on. The next thing I knew, I was listening to somebody else's phone ring in answer to mine calling. "Hello," said a young woman. "Hi, Tori." I put a smile into my voice. "I was wondering if you'd like to share a cup of coffee." Then, quick as a flash, I was sitting in her bright kitchen, watching as her children giggled over the jelly worms I brought. "Go show Daddy," Tori said. Turning to me, she added, "He's watching some documentary for the school's upcoming in-service day. They'll stay there until he moves, and that won't happen until the final credits." We laughed, but the skin around her eyes was still taut. Are you okay, Tori? I asked. Really? She chewed her cuticle for several minutes, fidgeting with the coffee and a plate of cookies. Finally, she sat down. There was a change in her face. Determination? Resignation? You've always been nice to me, Lynn, she said, sounding less neighbor and more businesslike. I'm having a moral crisis. The bank manager told me what she wants to do, so did my husband. They both want me to keep quiet. He's afraid the killer is going to come knocking on our door if I don't. On the other hand, I'm afraid somebody bad is going to walk away scot-free. Somehow, what they're asking me to do does not feel like the right thing. So you're looking for what? Another opinion or just an ear, an in-confidence one? Tori nodded. Well, if you're interested, the flaps are open and my lips are zipped. I sat back, hands crossed and smiling. My job at the bank isn't so much window clerk as staff accountant. She was looking out the kitchen window, slouched, wrinkled, not the woman I was used to seeing. I handle overseas financial transfers, bank-to-bank transfers, and other transactions that involve sending or receiving funds. It's complicated, but the gist of it is that I watch money go from here to there. She was chewing her cuticle again and talking at the same time. I fought the urge to pull her fingers from her mouth. I've already talked to Chief Kuhn. I told him about Mr. Knapp coming in and taking his money. We have clients I deal when they come in because they have special needs or quirks that make their transactions difficult. I'm good with people. It takes a lot to fluster me. Anyway, that was all the bank allowed me to say, that Mr. Knapp took his money. But somehow, I think it's only the tip of a bigger iceberg. She paused for a moment, gathering her thoughts. My conundrum has to do with the part of my job that involves monitoring these financial transfers. Over the last few years, I've found some cases where fraud was occurring. When I reported the cases, I had to work with the FBI and even the Treasury Department. Once they're called in, they hold jurisdiction, and to be truthful, they scare me. She stared into her cup, and I waited. Most cases were small. Usually some sap gets busted, and that's the end of it. But there have been a few that are still open. The bank has been very supportive. I even got a special commendation. Tori got up and closed the door to the television room where her husband and kids were. I think about them a lot, the cases that haven't been closed, she said as she sat back at the table. I believe some of them are not individual events. I believe they somehow relate to Henry Knapp. I wanted to give the information to Chief Kuhn, but Jada forbade me to do so. She was firm about it. She looked off for a moment again. Though there is no clear connection between Mr. Knapp and the cases I'm talking about, there are some shared familiarities. In several of the cases, the people were women of the same age group, and they came from the same central area. Tori licked her lips. I don't know what their connection is, but I believe there is one. And Lynn, in the cases I'm finding lately, most of the people have recently died. I sat stone still considering what Tori was saying, and also what she was implying. If I'm understanding you correctly, I said, you believe the fraudulent disbursement of private funds results from the loss of life, not with. It sounded stilted, but I wasn't comfortable asking if she thought somebody killed these people for their money. I knew her, but not like I know Shannon and Teresa. That's correct, said Terry. Okay, let's see if we can find a common denominator. You mentioned a common age. They would mostly all be in their mid-80s. What else? I asked. Tori's shoulders relaxed. Well, each of these people had savings accounts with the starting dates within the same 6-month period, and all with checks from penny stock accounts. There were explainable withdrawals. You take $5,000 out, you write a check for a new car. Then suddenly they were making multiple large cash withdrawals that were not followed by subsequent disbursement or payout paperwork. Also, individual withdrawals were kept slightly below the $10,000 limit that would require additional federal paperwork. The accounts affected carried a balance of between $150,000 and $450,000, but were not the person's living expense money. By that I mean not Social Security or a pension plan or even a 401k. In the cases I found, all of the people lived within 15 or 20 miles of each other, and they were all working in middle-class jobs when the accounts were opened. What does that mean? I asked. Oh, smaller businesses, nurses, teachers. I think there might have been a secretary or a realtor. So none of these people were Wall Street tycoons. Tori laughed. Let's say moderate financial means. How many cases are you talking about where money started disappearing? 5, maybe 6, Tori said. My eyes popped. Do you feel comfortable, Tori, telling me about a few of these cases? You could almost see the room get darker. She bit her bottom lip, then she exhaled. The last one involved a woman in a nursing home up at the hospital. She was well known around town and had worked at that same hospital for years. I've known her for a long time. She had Alzheimer's. To my knowledge, she had no family. A nephew from out west showed up out of the blue and moved her to a facility in Vergennes, which I thought was odd. Then her nephew came in with legal paperwork regarding her accounts. He remarked that she was excited to be going to Florida. She had Alzheimer's. That didn't seem right. What was she going to know about Florida? Anyway, on her birthday, I sent a card to the last address I had, which was in Vergennes, hoping that they would forward it. I got the card back. Stamped, deceased, no forwarding order available. Tori took a moment to clear her throat. I called the Vergennes nursing home, hoping they had made a mistake. After all, her accounts were still active. The representative from the nursing home verified she was gone. That's the term the woman used. I went up to the woman's transaction records to check it out. Sure enough, her retirement check had stopped arriving 2 months prior, but the account was showing ongoing business. Her stock portfolio was being liquidated. Funds transferred to her checking account were being removed as ATM withdrawals. In 90 days, she had been through almost $250,000. I immediately went to my contact with the FBI because of the irregularities in her spending habits. Most of the withdrawals were in Florida. This woman, whose only payout for over 3 years had been for the nursing home or a doctor's bill or maybe an occasional haircut, had suddenly bought this tricked-out pickup truck and was eating and drinking in dozens of restaurants while staying in big-name hotels. I was sipping lukewarm coffee. "You're sure she died?" I asked. "I don't know how to check on that other than what I did," Tori said. "The FBI agent gave me a number to call directly if I spotted irregularities. Jada was furious I had gone around her. I thought I was staving a step, getting it done faster, and she was on vacation." The FBI tracked down the owner of the truck using the VIN. He said he bought it from a woman who said it was too much vehicle for her to handle. He paid cash, $37,000. I'm sure the FBI has more, but that's all that I know. The door opened from the television room. Tori's husband and the kids were swooping in looking for snacks. I drove home wondering how old the woman in the scarlet dress had been and where she had lived. According to my memory, Hank Knapp was in his late 60s, too young for the group that Tori was talking about, which meant his story didn't relate to what she had told me, right? There was also the part where Tori had stated the deceased woman that she had mentioned had listed a local animal shelter on her beneficiary card, not a nephew. Chapter 9. I shared the information Tori had given me with Shannon. "Can you get the name of the woman who went to Vergennes?" Shannon asked. "I can verify a death report. If her Social Security stopped, then it's a sure bet a death certificate was issued. The Social Security Administration would have been notified electronically, and they would have canceled the checks immediately." I nodded. "What's the chance Tori will give you some of the other names?" Shannon asked. "I don't know," I said. "If she thinks it'll make someone look more seriously at what she's saying, she might." "Okay," said Shannon. Let's start with this one. How soon can you call her back? I was walking through the front door of the hardware store while I was talking to Shannon. I kept moving until I was in the employee restroom. When I was sure that there was no one in either stall, I dialed Tori. She sounded hesitant. I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, but it was Valina Bedford. The phone went dead in my hand. I had the information. Was I willing to put Tori's future on the line to chase it down? By the time I went for my supper break, Shannon was waiting at the door. Not only did I verify Valina Bedford died 10 days after she arrived in Virgins, I also got some information on next of kin. I stopped short. Give it to me, I demanded. There was none, Shannon said. She motioned to the sandwich shop across the street. I shook my head. She kept talking. According to the administrator, Ms. Bedford was transferred to the Virgins facility because she was failing. The gentleman from the lawyer's office believed St. Albans wasn't taking good care of her. After her passing, her body was removed to the local funeral parlor. At this time, they're still waiting for it to be claimed. The Virgins nursing home didn't know anything about a nephew. Didn't the nephew provide legal paperwork that gave him access? Lynn, I got this information because I have a friend at one of the biggest legal offices in Burlington. My friend was very thorough. He even sent me a photocopy of the paperwork left at the nursing home. The lawyer that signed the paperwork supposedly works in the same office as my friend. No one has ever heard of him. The judge who signed off, he has no recollection of the document and does not have a copy in his files. We need to see the bank's records. I dialed Tori and told her what we had found and what Shannon said we needed to see. By the time I hung up, Tori was in tears. There was no way of knowing if it was because a woman she liked was actually dead or if the entire mess was getting more complicated than she could handle. I went back to work with no idea if she could check the documents or not. Just before closing, Shannon bounced back into the hardware. I was trying to clear the daily reports and I couldn't work with her buzzing around. Go outside, I said. Wait for me. I can't think with you just sitting there. After the last entry was saved and the doors to the hardware were locked, we sat on a park bench facing the street and ultimately my apartment. My eyes wandered across the street and 3 floors up. There was a nightlight on behind my chair and I could see Rusty's silhouette on the windowsill. Go ahead, I said, exhaling stress and inhaling gas fumes. My workday was done. My mind could consider other things. I didn't get a chance to tell you what I heard about Mr. Knapp, Shannon said. Newspaper information? I asked. Sure, it would amount to nothing. I closed my eyes. His ghost shambled across the street. So this is information that is not available to the public, said Shannon. She paused, looking over her shoulder. The move was very spy-like. I suppose she was making sure no one was listening, or maybe she was trying to make sure that I knew that this was covert. When Chief Kuhn held his news conference, he asked for anyone who had seen Mr. Knapp in the 2 days prior to his death to call the hotline. The idea was to find out where Mr. Knapp had been and when. They got a lot of calls. There were some fruitcakes, but there were others that could be verified. One caller stated Mr. Knapp had been spending his nights in an apartment next to hers. She had seen him go in and out, and she knew who he was. Kuhn contacted the property owner and went into the apartment. There was no one there. But get this. The police found the murder scene. Chief Kuhn will be holding a press conference regarding that information first thing tomorrow morning. How do you know this? My mouth was open wide enough for a bat to fly in. I have began Shannon. Yeah, I know, a friend. My guts were quivering. When did all this happen, Shannon? She exhaled through thinned lips. The call came down around 5 this evening. They're investigating it right now. Where is this place? My voice was a whisper. Shannon hooked a thumb over her right shoulder, pointing toward the loading dock alley. Standing up, I could see the cruisers parked in the alley, all the lights off. There were people going up and down the rickety staircase to the apartments over the seafood restaurant. Every window in the front apartment was lit up. My jaw was opening and closing like a fish. Suddenly, Shannon grabbed my arm and hightailed it across the street, dragging me with her. "Open the door," she shrilled. "Quick, unlock it." My shaking hand got the street door unlocked, and we raced up to my apartment. "What the heck is wrong with you?" I leaned on the wall inside my front door, panting. "You didn't see that whole parade of press vans whipping up Main Street?" Shannon demanded. Her voice was still up there on the shrill meter. "If we kept sitting there, our pictures were going to show up on a news feed somewhere. The last thing we need to be is interviewed by Channel 3 if we're going to run our own investigation." I looked at her like she had 3 heads. "That's what you're doing, right, Superwoman?" asked Shannon, "sticking your nose in?" She was right. I didn't want second guess answered. I want Mr. Knapp to have the truth for no reason other than the fact that I thought he should have it. Chapter 10. The building with the fish restaurant across the street was at a slightly higher level than mine, so the crime scene was almost at the same height as my windows. After shutting off the nightlight, we stood in the window at a perfect vantage point to see what was happening on the porch across the way, and when the door was open, inside... "Holy cow," I said, elbowing Shannon. "You were right. Look at all the news vans." Reporters were setting up on both sides of the block. Each had their own little stage. Some of them were grabbing citizens and holding on to them, while other people who had been passing by were grilled about what they might know. "I'd bet they'd kill for this vantage point, huh, Shannon?" "Crap," she said. "I'll be right back." I knew she had parked the Hummer in front of my building, but I never saw her go anywhere near it. She reappeared with a black canvas tote. If nothing else, Shannon was efficient. She had that camera set up and recording in seconds. I was torn between watching her and the scene across the street. "Aren't you afraid someone is going to steal that out of your car?" I asked. "Good insurance," she said, intent on getting a tight focus on the porch scene. We watched until about 2 a.m, then things started to slow down. I got Shannon a pillow and a blanket and went to bed. When I got up in the morning, she had left. Chapter 11. What I learned after less than 30 days on the job was that the advertised flexible schedule was actually a less attractive aspect. As the assistant manager of a family-run hardware store in a medium-sized city, the flexible schedule was a perk for Clyde, not for me. I gave up a well-paying job at one of the biggest hospitals in the state when I got divorced because my ex was a diva doctor who enjoyed all of the perks. Everyone knew him, everyone loved him, especially the female grad students. Therefore, all the discomfort in his life was my fault. Oh, boo-hoo. While I was vulnerable, someone in my inner circle, or a counselor, a soon-to-be distant friend, it could have even been my older sister, convinced me not to be a stone around his neck, to make sure that I made the best decision possible for my children. I took that advice and made some radical decisions about the girls. When the smoke cleared, Roy's life was intact, but I ended up alone and living in St. Albans. Now, 18 months out, I realized I had been blinded by the smoke. As I mentioned before, Clyde has an aversion to computers. He's afraid he'll get tetanus or something. So even though my schedule is noon to closing as a working assistant manager, I get to do anything and everything related to data entry, time cards, stock ordering, electronic notifications, and whatever forms the government wants this week. It sounds yucky, but it's not bad. Even though I'm not great with a lot of other technology, I'm good with a computer. Oh, and I get Sundays and Mondays off, unless it's golf season. Then anything goes. After Clyde left for another golf afternoon, I headed for his office. Things got a little fuzzy while I had been working the middle of the previous Thursday night, especially because Shannon wouldn't shut her yammer. I found myself parked in Clyde's lumbar support desk chair with a bag of lunch and snacks, rereading the stack of notes left for me. The door was shut. I needed to be able to concentrate on what I was doing. It might have been a mistake to have told Harley where I worked. He wasn't big on walking up to my third-floor apartment and knew I didn't always respond to the phone's incessant ring. The hardware was basically one enormous room. He could track me down. I had just unfolded the top of my brown bag lunch, leftover sausage and penne, when he tapped on the glass window of the office door. "Can't stop," I said, pointing to the computer screen. "Order day." "You're eating," he yelled through the glass. I surrendered. Carly was working, and I didn't want Harley's yelling to draw her attention. She feels the need to report all indiscretion, particularly mine, to Clyde. I'm thinking when she turns 18, she's going to go for my job, and she's going to use tattling as a job qualification. "It's not locked." I turned away from the computer and circled my Tupperware bowl with the barrier of my arms so my buddy wouldn't be tempted to scarf it up. Harley wasn't interested in cold sausage. He beelined to Clyde's small computer combination TV DVD unit. While it warmed up, he danced in place. "You got to see this. It's so cool," he said. He was all a tremble. Picture it. 320 pounds of quivering male flesh. All that testosterone and sweat in one place is the stuff nightmares are made of. "I don't have a lot of time, Harley," I said. "I have to proof this order and get back to work. I can't be watching a movie." "This is real short," he explained. "I already cut out all the stuff that isn't pertinent." His cheeks were pink and there was a shine on his forehead. "A while ago there was a convention at the hotel and a production company invited the staff to volunteer as models." "Models?" I frowned. The image of Harley in a Speedo was destroying my appetite. "It was like a fashion show, but for the upcoming holiday season. Manufacturers show new lines, store owners place their orders." He pulled out the extra chair and parked his amble buns on the wooden seat. "Big stores do it all the time. The Chamber of Commerce put this together for the smaller stores, boutiques and places like that. I know Christmas is 6 months away, but the ordering happens now." I knew what was coming next, and I cringed. "Beatrice and I volunteered. This is just our bit." He looked so happy and proud. I put my lunch aside, leaned on my elbows, and smiled. He was my friend, after all. "Let her rip," I said. Thank you very much for joining me today as I read through Beneath the Fountain. Remember, you can find me at DonnaRaeMenardBooks.com if you'd like to tell me how you like the story so far, and I'll see you the next time. Have a great day.